Welcome to the show. I'm Jason Whitlock, and I'll tell you why Tom Brady's latest move proves he's picking a fight with Bill Belichick.
I'm Colin Cowherd. I'll tell you why Joel Embiid's angry Instagram post should get him insta-benched. Speak for yourself starts now. And I do fly coach more than you think. Long esoteric joke.
The 80s, the 1980s. All right, hello and welcome. Joining us today is Fox Sports NBA analyst Chris Broussard and NBA champion Dante Jones. We start with a stunner in the NBA. Last night, Dwyane Wade came off the bench to drop 28 points on the Sixers, leading Miami to victory and evening the series with Philly at 1 apiece. Wade's 28 were the most he scored since returning to the Heat in February, after he was traded away from his BFF, LeBron James. Cowherd, you think the Cavs regret giving up on Dwyane Wade?
No, listen, you ever read those stories about every 5 years there's a story where they bury somebody alive? Like, I think I've buried Dwyane Wade 7 times. And then he has one of these games and you're like, he's still great? But let's be honest about him. This is an outlier. His 2 biggest games were against the Sixers. He does this to us. 5 years ago, he was missing playoff games, and we were burying him then. This is why he's just Jeter-esque. His best, he always saves them when, 3 or 4 times a year, 3 years from now, he's going to pull one of these games out. This is just who he is. He's 36, though.
Yeah, he's an April, May, June player.
Yes.
And so that's why you keep him around and you don't overreact to what's going on in December, January, and February. You keep this guy so at some point you can take out a little bat and break the glass window and bring him out and he'll win you a playoff game. This is exactly what the Cavaliers need at playoff time. A guy like like Dwyane Wade, a guy like Andre Iguodala, that playoff proven, who can get it done at this time of the year.
No regrets. That was very impressive. That was great. Right. He's got 1, maybe 2 games like that if they get to the Eastern Conference Finals in the playoffs. When you know it, Dante, when you're an older player, it's not that you can't go out and have 1 or 2 great games. It's that you can't do it consistently. And Wade cannot do this consistently. Wasn't he in Chicago last year for that 6-game series against Boston, led by Isaiah Thomas? The Bulls lost 4 straight games. Dwyane Wade shot 37% from the floor, averaged 15 points. In Game 6, decisive Game 6, 1 for 10, 2 points. Come on, this is one game.
He was a starter. Now he's in the right role for a guy his age.
But he wouldn't be in that role in Cleveland.
I say no for different reasons. I think Dwyane Wade belongs in Miami. That's it, point blank. Like, he's what they need. He wasn't the right fit in Cleveland. Just wasn't. You can throw a bunch of stars on one team and people and say, yeah, on paper this works, but the personalities and for the rest of the team, not for LeBron, but for the rest of the team, he wasn't the right fit. Jay Crowder wasn't the right fit. Derrick Rose wasn't the right fit. That doesn't mean that they can't play basketball anymore. It just means they weren't the right fit for that situation, that style of play. Some players need a motion set. They need to feel like they're involved. Some people need structure. They just didn't have what they needed in Cleveland. So it just is what it is. I don't think he can't do this again. I think that he's what they need in Miami. He's that presence, that championship DNA. Yes, he can be that for that set of guys, for that group. But he just wasn't the right fit in Cleveland, so no.
By the way, his 2 best games this year have been against Philly. Potentially he matches up well with Philly.
Oh, no, he's a great matchup. A friend sent me a cut-up of Dwyane Wade versus Philly, and it's really impressive. This is the right matchup for him. But again, show me who on this Cleveland team, this supporting cast, particularly the new guys, that's going to win a game for Cleveland during this playoff stretch. Because, again, if you go look at and again, I'm not caping up for Derrick Rose or any of these guys, that this is very early in the playoffs. but look.
You think? So now it was a bad trade? It was a bad trade now?
Nance, Hood, George Hill, Clarkson. Are any of them going to win a game the way Dwyane Wade just won a game for the Miami Heat?
Okay, but to Chris's point, even when Dwyane Wade was in his prime, he was never a great 3-ball shooter.
No.
And as he's lost his ability to elevate, he doesn't shoot a terribly high percentage consistently now. So even and I love Dwyane Wade. I mean, again, I buried this guy like 6 times. this is not the way the league is. He just had a great Dwyane Wade night. And it's just rare.
In Cleveland, with those old players they had, Dwyane at his age is not a great defender. He had some nice steals and stuff last night, but not a great defender. So you put him out there with other old players, and he can't shoot the three, it wasn't a good fit, because if I'm not going to stop you, I better be able to shoot threes and outscore you, and Dwyane couldn't do that. It was too much of a
He didn't hit a
log
three
jam
last
there.
night, and they beat the Sixers, who were on a 17-game winning streak.
But he was hot last night. He wouldn't have got those opportunities.
He was
in Cleveland.
hot. He had shooters around him. He wouldn't have the right personnel to do that in Cleveland. Like, he needs the ball in his hands. He needs shooters around him. He needs to space up to work his mid-range game. In Cleveland, he didn't have that. If LeBron's on the court, he's not necessarily a shooter.
Exactly.
It's just the wrong situation for him rather than what he has in Miami right now.
Hi, guys. It's Colin Coward. Before we get back to Speak for Yourselves podcast, I want to tell you about Toyo Tires. UFC fighters are tough. You know what else? Toyo Tires. That's why Toyo has been around and a proud sponsor of UFC. Like the fighters, they're built for battle. It's an all-or-nothing philosophy. Aggressive design, durability, on- and off-road capabilities. Yes to all of them. Living life on the highway? Toyo, T-O-Y-O, has you covered. No matter what you drive, Toyo has what you need, and frankly, the tires just look cool. Nothing ruins your day faster than being stranded on the side of a road with a flat tire. Any vehicle, any terrain, all or nothing. The next time you need tires, ask for Toyo. To experience more, visit TOYO, toyotires.com/UFC. toyotires.com/UFC. Now, let's get back to the show.
So the other shocker from last night's game, this one coming from the injured Sixers star, Phantom of the Opera's Joel Embiid, who has been sidelined for the past 3 weeks after suffering a broken orbital bone and a concussion after that scary collision with the rookie Markelle Fultz. Last night, when the team decided to keep Embiid out of action once again, he went on Instagram and wrote in big, bold, size 32 font, "Effing sick and tired of being babied." After the game, Sixer head coach Brett Brown addressed Embiid's post.
He just wants to play basketball. He wants to be with his team. He wants to play in front of the fans. You know, he wants to see this through. And when he's not able to do that, he gets frustrated. And I respect his frustration. It's born out of competitiveness, and it's born out of him wanting to be with his team. And so the medical side, the different reasons, you know, I'm not going to go there.
All right, Whitlock, you have an issue with him calling out the team?
Well, I don't think he called out the team. I think, in his words, he's a millennial. He's basically saying carpe diem, seize the day. He's had a number of injuries throughout his short career, collegiately and in NBA. He wants to participate in this. They're on a 17-game winning streak headed into last night. They're the talk of the NBA. Oh my God, the Sixers the process may land early. He wants to be a part of it. The coach doesn't have a real problem with it. This is a guy that wants to play. I kind of respect it.
Let me support the Sixers here, or anybody in life. If you'd been burned by something, let's say in your life, your dad had all his money in the stock market, got burned, and then you put your money in the stock market and you got burned. You're probably like, I'm gonna put my money in real estate. Okay, the Sixers have been burned repeatedly by injuries. We talk about the process. If you go back to this process when it started, all of these guys have dealt with injuries. They have been burned from day one of the process, often with bigs missing extensive time. I can't blame the Sixers for saying, okay, I know it's a face thing. We're going to give you an extra day off. They've been burned by injuries for 5 years.
Look, we rarely see organizations hold people back because they look out for themselves. We have an opportunity to see where an organization's like, listen, you're not ready to play. We're trying to look out for you as a basketball player, not for our selfish reasons. We want to win a series. We're looking out for you. We want you to be the best you can be. So I have to respect the organization in that sense. And I think he's just a little immature at this point in time. He wants to play. He wants to be the savior for the city. He's their best player. He wants some action right now, and he can't lead his team, and he's frustrated. It's understandable. You should expect that from your best player. He should want to be out there on the floor, but he has to understand that the team is doing the best thing for him, and I applaud that organization for doing the best thing for them.
Yeah, I see both sides. I agree with you guys. If I'm Philly, I'm like, dude, you played 31 games in 3 years. Like, darn right we're babying you and protecting you. But on the other hand, I like his tweet. Like, if I'm the Sixers, I want that. I don't want him being content like, hey, I'm sitting out, watching your guys go to battle. Like, I want him wanting to be out there, even if he does it rudely and calls a couple people out. You want that competitiveness. That means he's got the dog in him.
And the other thing, Colin, just imagine, what is he, 21 years old?
Yeah.
He's in Philadelphia. The Eagles have won a Super Bowl. The city's on fire. Villanova wins the NCAA title. The city's on fire. He's trying to be a part of the fire, and that's made him overly emotional. And again, in his mind, I know what he's going, if this were something going on with my lower body, I get it. But if it's just about protecting my face, I got this match. What's the worst thing that could happen? We've seen Rip Hamilton and everybody, and I know he plays in the low post, and he's going to be playing Hassan Whiteside, and it's probably more physical. But I'm with him, man. Don't baby me. Let me go.
No, Rip was a broken nose. This is an eye. Did you see his eye after the incident? Like, he looked like a total different individual. Yes, you want your best player chomping at the bit to play, but you also want to do the best for him. And he may not know what he's exposing himself to or how he could endanger himself. If it's a broken nose, yeah, you may be able to still function, but you maybe not without your eye.
Okay, what's the knock on Philadelphia? It's not talent, it's youth. This was a youth move. Right. And if you want to win in the playoffs, you act like a grown-up. Not just on the court, off the court. This felt very young to me. This is what a young player does. By the way, I get it. I mean, if I was 21 with all that money and all that fame.
24.
Okay.
I misspoke. He's 24.
Okay. But in the end, it felt young. And that's why veteran teams win the playoffs. Disciplined, don't overreact, take a deep breath, understand the macro, not the micro, not the moment. It just felt like a young move.
You mean like Draymond? For the Warriors?
But by the way, Draymond's youth hurt them a couple years ago in the playoffs.
If I'm in Philadelphia, though, with all the things that are going on with their sports team, I don't blame him for being youthfully emotional.
Welcome back. Joining us now, former Super Bowl champ Brian Cox, founder of The Big Lead, J-Mac, Jason McIntyre, the former Cowboy wide receiver, perennial headache, Des Bryant, looking for a new team after being cut by Dallas on Friday. They didn't even offer him a reduced salary. They just cut him. In an interview with Mike Fisher at 24/7 Sports, Des seemed excited about playing for one team in particular.
New York, they got a hell of a defense. OBJ coming back. Of course, they're about to pay him. So, playing with him, Sterling, that's crazy. That'd be crazy.
All right, Whitlock, Des and OBJ in the same team. Disaster for the Giants?
Yeah, I think Des just said it all. That would be crazy. And he's right. And I think it would be crazy. You would have two guys basically playing for a contract that want the ball. Eli Manning, an old quarterback, on his way out the door. I just don't think the Giants need any more crazy. They need stability. And I just think Des Bryant added to OBJ would be the Titanic.
You like it, Brian?
No. Interesting to me, though, is Des wants to be a number 2 now. He don't want to be the guy. So that says to me that he knows his play has gone downhill. So anytime you admit that I want to go and play with somebody else to take the pressure off of you, you're admitting that you've lost your game. And so secondly, the point that I'll make is Sherman is not a coach that's confrontational, that will stand up to Des, much like Jason Garrett was. So now you'd have two guys with OBJ, who's known to get hot, and then to go over with Des Bryant to get hot, and you got a coach that's not equipped to handle that. Not a good look.
I mean, you're being kind over here. This is the team that tried Brandon Marshall last year with OBJ. That obviously was a disaster. But let's just focus on Des for a second, because when you look at his situation, the Cowboys shafted him. They cut him so late in the process, nobody has money to offer him. He can't get a good deal anywhere. The Giants have no free agent money. They can't even make a play here. I actually think he's going to have to settle for something like a one-year deal from the Patriots. Bill Belichick coming in with a, hey, prove it to me. You'll get some incentives. But Des is in a terrible spot. The Giants are not going to get him.
I think I think if he had been cut on Christmas Day, no one's offering him a huge contract.
I agree with
and
that.
I
It's a little
think
harsh.
no, seriously, because I think Brian makes an excellent point that we hadn't thought of. He just raised his hand and said, "I'll be number 2." Now, he's been in Dallas saying, I'm a number one, that they just run the offense through me, blah, blah, blah. And now that he's been cut, it's like, I'll go play with OBJ. Or, hey, I'll go play opposite Antonio Brown. I'll go play opposite Julio Jones.
Right.
Again, he's not looking for a spot where he can go be the guy. He's looking to be the number 2. Who's paying for that?
I'm not a big Dez fan. Let me just throw this out there. Because the Cowboys are so high profile,
Right.
had Dez played with the Lions or Tampa Bay, is it possible he would be just seen as a little flamboyant?
No, and I tell you the reason why I say that, because he came to the league with baggage from Oklahoma State.
All right.
And then it was exacerbated when all the times you've seen him on the sideline and people not wanting to have conversations with him because he'd get hot, and him yelling at the coordinator.
But if
and
he
him
played
yelling
at Tampa, would we have
receiver.
seen those?
Yes.
Yeah, you would have seen them, but not the way, because Dallas is a big-ticket item that they're on TV as often as they are. It makes it more of an issue, but you'd have seen it if it was in Detroit or Cleveland or anywhere
Okay,
else.
because this is my listen, I'm not a big Dez fan, but they've won 22 games in 2 years with him, with a kid quarterback. He can't be that disruptive.
How many 100-yard games?
yeah.
How many 100-yard games?
No. I don't think he's worth big money, but what if he took a massive pay cut?
Yeah, but he's still saying he's the number 1.
No. Now
Well,
you
now he's saying he's the number 2, but he wants number 1 money.
Okay,
You know,
that
so-
I
Well,
wouldn't
listen,
go
there's
for.
number 2 guys that got big money. Sammy Watkins just got huge money. Paul Richardson, who I don't even think is as good as Des Bryant, got a lot of money. So you
know
could
the
get
common,
money.
You know the common theme in those two?
Yeah,
they
they're
can
willing,
run.
They can run. They're fast, yes.
And they're not an issue.
But at the same time, we're not saying Dez is washed, right? He's only 29
No,
years old.
but
Come on, bro.
Dez was already a high 4.5 guy when he came in the league, and so now he's a big receiver with a big catch radius, but he can't get away from defensive backs.
But on the other side of that, he's also playing to prove the Cowboys wrong. And I think there's something to mentally, hey, man, I'm not done. I'm 29. It's not over.
I'm not betting on
If
that.
I could give you, I guess my point is this. Listen, Dallas had a lot of noise. They still won 11 games per year last 2 years with crazy Dez.
I get that. In terms of a disruption, you're right. But in terms of production,
That's the
and
problem.
did he contribute to those? How much was he responsible for that average of 11 victories per year the last 2 years? I think there's some question about that. As to Jason's point, and what Brian made an excellent point in terms of when you can have enough speed to make the safeties back off and change coverage or whatever, yeah, they're going to pay you for that, regardless of Sammy Watkins doesn't have to catch 90 balls to justify that contract. But if he can just be enough of a threat with the deep ball that he changes coverage or opens up some running lanes for you, that's worth it. Dez doesn't offer any of those things. Dez is a poor route runner who's slow. Right. That's not a great combination.
And his greatest asset was he could catch the ball in traffic. The last 2 years, you haven't seen that.
That's
A
right.
lot of drops.
Yes.
And so that's why my point comes in. A number 2 that can run, you would pay that. But that's like paying Landry all that money to go to Cleveland. He is Amendola. They just replaced Landry with Amendola in Miami. A little guy that can run in the slot, cross the middle. They can't score a lot of touchdowns. They can't have a lot of production because they can't separate.
The way you guys are saying that Des Bryant's not going to be playing in the NFL next year.
He's either going to play for Baltimore,
Baltimore Ravens,
who
that's the one
wants
that
him.
everybody says, yeah.
Maybe John Gruden might get in it late because he hates young wide receivers. So you could see Dez being a play out there at some point. But outside of that, it's not going to be much
many
action.
options.
And I don't fault Dallas for letting him go late because they paid him that money. He was guaranteed he was on the roster. They got the right to do however and whenever they want to release
It's
him.
like, when you're a receiver that can't run, it's like being overweight and unattractive. I'm attractive, so I get away with being overweight because I'm attractive. So you got to have one or the other. All right, welcome back. Former Super Bowl champ and chief of the Patriots Police Department, Brian Cox is here. All right, to a stunning report out of New England. NBC Sports Patriots insider Tom Curran says that Tom Brady is now in, quote, open revolt against head coach Bill Belichick. Curran says Brady wants to change everything about the organization, It looks like the revolt may have already started. Reports say that Brady will skip the team's offseason training program. Cowherd, you think Brady is picking a fight with Belichick?
I think Brady wants a voice. This has always been an interesting relationship. Tom was not a first round, he wasn't a number one pick.
Right.
So Belichick found him and refined him. And he fit into Bill's system. And the opening Super Bowls were Bill's defense. This isn't Peyton Manning, where he came in awe-inspiring talent.
Right.
Polian and Peyton Manning, respectful.
Right.
As great as Brady is, this has been Belichick's voice for 18 years, and I think Tom is like, hey, I may be the greatest that's ever played. I want to have a voice here. I totally get this.
And it's open revolt. And again, what you just described is like Joe Jackson and Michael Jackson. And at some point, Michael Jackson was like, hey, man, I don't need you, Joe. I'm ready to sing on my own. I can do Thriller on my own. And again, I think there's some open rebellion here that's necessary. Belichick had his time. And everybody, and we'll get into this with Popovich later, everybody has an expiration date. Bobby Knight had it. Bill Belichick's having his right now. And so I don't blame Tom Brady for wanting Bill Belichick to loosen up, particularly in the aftermath of that Malcolm Butler decision.
Not happening. 2 points that I'll make. One, we haven't heard directly from Tom Brady. We've only heard from the cast-offs that are not there that have been made by the system in New England. And the second thing is, Bill is the beginning and the end of the word in that organization. As I said yesterday, he takes less money because other teams will pay him twofold, especially since what Gruden got, to run their organization and to bring championships there. Kraft is smart enough to know I leave football decisions to football people. So it ends with Belichick. So we can make all the things out about it that we want to make about it. Until I hear Tom Brady say it and go on record as saying it, it's not an issue for me.
We heard from his wife, Giselle, in the documentary, Tom versus Time. Brady wants to have fun and be respected within the organization. Brady's no longer that child from 18 years ago. He's a grown-ass man. He's accomplished a tremendous, more than any football player has ever accomplished. And Belichick, again, needs to respect that. And Bob Kraft needs to make Belichick respect that because, again, this Malcolm Butler decision that he hasn't even explained to the owner, that to me is why Tom Brady and all these players are like, man, enough is enough.
You heard that Danny Amendola thing. He
said it when he was gone. And what was Amendola's stats before he went to New England? You didn't know about Amendola. So he ought to be thankful for that opportunity. The second thing I'm going to say is this about Tom's wife. Her name's not on the paycheck, so her opinion doesn't matter. What matters in that building is what Bill Belichick says.
Didn't you take something, though?
I hope your wife wasn't watching that.
Well, my wife knows.
Her opinion matters.
My wife knows in my work, you don't have a place to say anything because that's the quickest way to get fired as a coach and or as a player when your wife starts talking. Once the guy that was in Miami that his wife got him run out to Tampa, you got to stay out of your husband's business. That's not your job.
Let me ask you this, though. You didn't take anything from that documentary, Tom versus Time. Everybody was in that thing. Brady was on the phone with everybody except Belichick. You don't think that was Tom saying, hey, he's got his system, look at my system.
Yeah, but let me tell you this, though. You know, as a player, I love Bill Belichick. He will never ask the team to hire me because he sees me as a loose cannon. But I love him because he changed what people thought about me in the NFL. Now, with Bill, he's a great coach. He's a pleasant person sometimes. What Danny Amendola said about the a-hole comment is true.
Yeah.
But he's mine. You know, the guy is a guy that will help you reach levels you never thought you could reach on the field. I couldn't tell you one thing he enjoys off the field. I couldn't tell you one thing about him off the field. I don't know. And that's okay. That's player-coach relationship, whereas he wants to keep it separate. Parcells was different. Me and Parcells would go to the horse races, and we'd get to work, and he'd be cussing me out like, you've been up all night. I was with you. You know, but that's just Bill. He believes in keeping it separate like that. Yeah. But he'll be there as long as he wants to be there. And I will say, when Tom leaves, it'll be time for him to step upstairs and become, the head GM or
Who, Belichick
leader
or Brady?
Belichick. He'll
You
be the
think
football.
Once
operation.
Brady leaves, Bill goes upstairs.
I think he goes upstairs.
To another star quarterback who might want to consider a revolt of his own. Aaron Rodgers is reportedly, quote, frustrated and emotional over his lack of influence on the Packers' moves. It's not hard to see why. This offseason, Green Bay let go of his quarterback coach, Alex Van Pelt, and Aaron's favorite receiver, go-to guy, Jordy Nelson. Today, Aaron shared his feelings on entering the year without his buddy Jordy.
As humans, we have personal connections to people, and obviously, he was one of my closest friends in the locker room for a number of years and played together for a long time and talked about, really finishing his career here and together and making the most of the opportunities. That's the disappointment is when you get close to your teammates and they're not here anymore, and especially when they're not here and they're playing somewhere else. But again, the organization's making decisions that they feel like are in the best interest of our team, and you got to trust the process.
All right, Whitlock, should Aaron have more influence on Green Bay's moves?
The key word here to me is influence. And I think he needs to be looped in, but I'm not going to go as far as say influence. He's a player. But to make the move on his quarterback coach without having a conversation with him and give him a chance to make his speech on why you should retain the guy. You can then go make your decision if you want to move on from the guy. But and again, with Jordy Nelson, give him an explanation, but make your decision. Influence is a bit strong of a word. I would go that far maybe with Tom Brady because of the 5 Super Bowls and the whole 18 years of success. Aaron Rodgers has won a Super Bowl. He's a great player. He's as talented as players I've seen at the quarterback position. But influence, I'm a little iffy on that. Being looped in and part of the conversation, I would think so.
No, I don't think he deserves a conversation because at the end of the day, when you put together the salary cap, when you do it, it's a business. So you can't pay 3 wide receivers upwards of $10 million. With Devontae Adams making 10, with Jordy Nelson making around 7, and with Randall Cobb making $10 million. You can't do it in this day and age. With the quarterback coach, it happened in San Francisco with Mooch when he got run out. Sometimes you get into a situation where you think that the guys are growing too close and you need to start something new. We've heard the different rumblings about, Mike McCarthy getting into it with Rodgers a couple times over the last couple years, and I'm sure that the buffer was Alex Van Pelt. So when you get into that situation as a head coach, when you sit atop and you look at it from a helicopter's view, sometimes you say we need a fresh voice talking to Aaron. We need to do something different. And, Parcells always used to say, players play, coaches coach. And when you talk about the salary cap, let the salary cap people handle that. That's not a player, because then you keeping your friends. What if you keep a player that's on the downward spiral, which Jordy Nelson's been hurt the last 2 years, missed some games? You can't afford to pay guys like that kind of money.
Let me just, I mostly agree with what you're both saying, but let me just to play a devil's advocate.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Rodgers didn't push back in the first 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
He did this because he trusted the personnel decisions. In the last 3 years, they're not good defensively. You watched them last year at the end. I watched them play Cleveland. I'm not sure who had better defensive personnel. Aaron Rodgers did trust the organization initially.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, Tom, Matt Ryan, a lot of these guys, of course they don't talk.
Right.
Because they have good rosters.
Mm-hmm.
You saw that roster last year. It looked like the Browns. Aaron has only started pushing back when he goes out. I mean, Aaron's a smart guy. He's watching that defense. He's like, we can't stop anybody.
But they addressed it this year. That's the point. Like, when their defensive line job came open, I wanted to jump in that thing because I see them as a Super Bowl favorites. Bringing Mike Pettin in there, a new defensive philosophy, a system, they're only going to give up 14, 16 points a game. Now you're scoring 31, 32. You're the Super Bowl favorite, in my opinion. They addressed it.
Here's what I would say, Colin, why I disagree with you in terms their defensive problems. Aaron Rodgers cannot fix them. He can't go into a room and say, hey, this guy or that guy is who we should bring in. He doesn't know. And so what's he bitching about? In terms, he can't fix their defense. He may have some thoughts on what receivers he can work with. And again, they should hear him out. But at the end of the day, They need to make the decisions because, again, he's a great quarterback. I've seen nothing that says he's a great general manager, a great head coach, a great position coach. He's a great quarterback. And so I think we see a lot of this in the NBA where the players have far more influence. But that's such a small, 5 guys on the court at one time, a roster of 15. When you're talking about you're dealing with 53 men, 3 different sides of the ball, offense, defense, and special teams, and all the decisions are connected. The way you play defense affects the way you play offense. The way you play offense affects your defense. Aaron Rodgers, these guys aren't qualified.
And let me throw 2 other points into the equation. First of all, I think Aaron Rodgers is the top 2 quarterbacks in this league. It's either Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, or Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady. Drew Brees would be 3 in my book.
Yeah.
The second thing is when Davante Adams got there, he didn't want to work with that guy. Now, 3 years later, he's one of the best wide receivers in the league, and they have such great chemistry. So the people upstairs have an understanding of how to put a team together. And for as much pressure as Ted Thompson was under, because Green Bay is the only team that's owned by the people, the shareholders, he was accountable to that. And now they have a new GM who Mike McCarthy handpicked, and now they're in a situation where they have Mike Pettin and that defensive staff. They're going to be a much better ball club. That's going to be the team that you're going to be looking at this year saying, wow, how good are they?
All right. Minnesota's not bad either. Chris Broussard, Dante Jones are back. Let's return to the association. Spurs coach Greg Popovich, who might be watching his empire crumble. His team's now down 0-2 to the Warriors, still without Kawhi Leonard, out for the year, refuses to give Pop a timetable for his return, and now the Washington Post just published a profile of a pro-Trump Spurs fan to have stopped supporting the team because they're turned off by Pop's nonstop bashing of the president. Last night, the coach responded to the story in his usual Popovich way.
Who are these people? The Washington Post cares what goes on in San Antonio? You know I don't care about that article that anybody might write, except if you wrote one. The organization has never said a word about any opinion that I might have about anything. Not one time.
Popovich used to back up his tough talk with titles, not the case anymore. In the past 4 years, Spurs actually have a losing record in the playoffs. Whitlock, given this and all the problems in San Antonio this year, do you think Popovich is still an elite coach?
I want to be careful here because I want to be heard in context. I'm from Indiana, grew up watching Bobby Knight, saw the game change, and Bobby Knight just become crankier and crankier and crankier and not moving with the times. And everybody, as I said earlier, has an expiration date. Everybody, every great coach at some point isn't great anymore. And so I look at his relationship with Kawhi Leonard, clearly their best player. He has destroyed that with his crankiness. And again, sometimes when you get older, you just get in that mindset, I don't care, I know what's right, and I'm going to do me. And sometimes that's not the right thing for sports. And sometimes, just like I think we're seeing with Belichick, the tide changes on you and you're not ready for it. And so, yeah, I think Popovich had a tremendous run. He's an all-time great NBA coach, but his expiration date has arrived.
Listen, every great coach in NBA history has one thing in common. They're all aligned with a great player. Popovich and Kawhi don't work. I don't know who to blame. But here's one thing that's never changed in the NBA since I was a kid. It is a players' league. You got to get along. If you're Rick Carlisle, when you got there, the one guy that you had to get along with was Dirk. And this is just one of these things. I'm not blaming anybody. I don't know if it's crankiness or politics, but Pop and Kawhi's not working. And it needs to work because Kawhi, I still contend, is a top, next to LeBron, well, probably even more than LeBron now, is the best two-way player in the league.
Pop is still elite. The only things I don't agree with is his last comment about Kawhi and his group or his team. That's the only thing I don't agree with Pop.
You know how important that is?
Yes, but there's some information we're missing in the middle. Since Kawhi's not talking, since Pop isn't saying anything, we're missing information, so we don't know where that relationship lies. They do a good job of keeping things internal, but that's the only thing. We're talking about a coach with, 17, 18 seasons of 50-plus wins in a row. This is his worst season at 47 wins without his best player. he is legendary and elite. We cannot knock. His political commentary is great for our culture, for the world we live in today. Whether you may not agree with it, okay, but he's standing up for something, and he's letting his voice be heard. Pop adjusts over time. He's not stuck in his ways, even with LaMarcus Aldridge. As you say, before he was unhappy, he wanted out. And what Pop said, you know what, I had to dig into him and find out and make him feel comfortable in our system. And you see what has come from that so far. So I think Pop is going to adjust to the situation. I think
Kawhi's not even there.
But
during
if
the
he's not there, then they'll either part ways amicably. They haven't killed each other in the media, both sides. They either part ways or make it work.
Bye bye Pop.
They'll make it. They've always found a way to make it work in San Antonio
Good luck finding another
consistently
one.
for 21 straight seasons.
Look, it's two separate situations. Basketball-wise, he's still great. He just took a team with Powell's 37.
Got a top 3
Manu's
talent.
40. Tony Parker's in his 16th year and 35. And they were 2 games out of the 3rd seed in the West. Your best player's not there for all but 9 games. So basketball-wise, there's no problem. He still can coach. The Kawhi situation, Pop is not being fully transparent. Like, the Spurs told Kawhi, when they got the last medical reports, stay in New York, rehab. They have 2 trainers with Kawhi in New York right now working with him. So Kawhi's side feels like the Spurs understand what's going on. They understand why we're not on the bench at the games. And Pop is letting it hang out there like, oh, Kawhi is just not coming. He's using the term group instead of medical team or medical staff, whatever. These little pot shots, maybe even what he said about LaMarcus Aldridge last night and praised him for being out. I don't know that it'll work with Kawhi. Kawhi is not Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili. And even if they offer him the Supermax, if he is upset, and I don't know that he has, but if he's upset Kawhi to the point where he's had it, that could be the death
By the
knell.
way,
but basketball-wise, he's
Belichick and Popovich.
the same.
They're both great coaches.
There you go.
But there is something to be said about, I can remember when I covered the Portland Trail Blazers, and Mike Dunleavy was the coach. And, you know, I would be critical of Rasheed, and he was always like, Rasheed's great, Rasheed's amazing. And I remember talking to him about it. It's like, Rasheed was the most talented guy I've ever coached. You get along with the most talented guy you've ever coached. And Rasheed led the league in technicals, and Mike would be, hey, Rasheed has a point. And Mike's theory was kind of like, Rasheed was young, he was gifted, it's my job. So I just think what you're saying about Bobby Knight, I don't think he's Bobby Knight. I don't think, but I do think the Kawhi thing feels at least a little fractured, a little.
He's still in his dominance as a coach right now with the 47 wins without a top 3 talent, with arguably the 2nd best player in the NBA, and he's still making it work without them, like right there in the thick of things. Even if it doesn't work with Kawhi, he's an asset. You can go and exchange that for other assets that fit, and they do an amazing job of taking talent and making it fit into their system, grabbing the right sets of talent to make it work. So worst case scenario, it doesn't work with Kawhi. I can't get along with my best player. They'll find something, a package that works, and they'll make it work for the Spurs, and they'll be back in the playoffs, back in the hunt, doing what they do on a consistent basis.
All right, to the team that's probably desperate for any coach, elite or not, the Knicks are once again looking for any volunteers after firing Jeff Hornacek. Now a familiar name is in the mix, former Warriors coach Mark Jackson, who had 2 stints with the Knicks during his playing career. Cowherd, you think Mark Jackson should want to coach the dysfunctional Knicks?
Is James Dolan still on him? When is the right time to take the wrong job? Why?
Did James Dolan lose his billions or something? Is the check's not going to clear?
Would you take a job with a company that has a history of firing people without giving them any product to work with?
I would coach for a team that has a history of paying for talent and overpaying for even some bad talent, but they'll spend money. James Dolan will spend money in an attempt to win. That's a good situation for Mark Jackson.
They're not spending it on the right talent.
Mark will want this. Obviously, he's from New York. He played for the Knicks. This is a dream for him. And really, this shouldn't be the case. I don't know that anybody else would offer him a job. He's been blackballed. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He has been this guy was great with the Warriors. Now, no doubt, Steve Kerr took him to another level, but he still was a great coach with that team. And for him to be passed over for a job after job after job. He's been blackballed elsewhere. So this may be the only job he can get. And you got Kristaps Porzingis. You're going to have cap room in the future. You've got a lottery pick this year. You'll have your first-round picks going forward. Scott Perry's a good GM. So, yeah, he should take this, and it could work out for him.
They say all you need is one. And all you need is one team to want you. And this is the perfect job for him. Any other situation may not be perfect for Mark, but this is perfect for him because he knows the city. He's from the city. He has allegiance to the city. He played high school and college in the city. He has the personality for the city to combat the media and the on-court challenges. He's done it before with a young group of kids and turned their losing season into 2 years of winning. So he's done this job before, and he's right for the city of New York City. Like, New York City can rally around Mark Jackson and his personality and what he can do for those young group of kids.
Have you not been reading the Knicks the last 12 years?
Yeah, I have. And look, James Dolan also owns the New York Rangers, who have had success. And so I just don't buy into the narrative that James Dolan is the worst owner in sports, like some people do. I think he's one of the most loyal people in sports. I think he's one of the people that has no problem hiring African Americans at the highest level in his organization and supporting them. And so if I'm Mark Jackson, again, and I agree with Dante's point, I'm not so sure he's been blackballed. I think it's been tough for him to get a job, but all you need is one, and the right one. And you can fix all those problems and make everybody look like a clown. And again, Mark Jackson probably wasn't perfect in his role with the Golden State Warriors. And again, I think he probably should have been retained, but hell, they got Kerr and they won championships, and so you can't knock them. But getting a second opportunity with a team that spends money and has been loyal to some people probably less talented as a coach than Mark Jackson, great situation, and I'll be rooting for him. All right, time for last call. And another amazing moment last night from this generation's Paul Bunyan. Bryce Harper, who crushed a 406-foot home run with a broken bat. Cowherd, has Bryce Harper become must-see TV?
He is the one player. He reminds me a little Jose Canseco. His all-around game isn't perfect, but when Jose was up, you're walking through an airport and Jose Canseco's up, you stopped, waited for your bags, and you watched Jose Canseco hit. That's how I feel.
He is must-see TV. The balls are juiced. And this is why Mark McGwire says he could hit 70 home runs in this era, is because, again, a broken bat, 406 foot home run. The balls have something going on here. But must-see TV, absolutely. All right, to the reigning NFL champions, Super Bowl MVP quarterback Nick Foles says that he would love to be a starting quarterback again. Meanwhile, the Eagles have made it quite clear that they'll go back to Carson Wentz once he's healthy. Coward, you worried about a QB controversy in Philly?
Did you put this in the show?
Yes, I did.
Can we end the Nick Foles topics?
He's the MVP of the Super Bowl,
You
Cowherd.
think there's a quarterback controversy?
No, I don't think there's a quarterback controversy, but Nick Foles should have been saying this months ago. I want to be a starter or get me the hell out of here.
Do we have an Alex Smith story you want to squeeze in?
Tomorrow we will squeeze in one about Alex. Things are going very well in Washington.
Is a star. Nick Foles
is an MVP of a Super Bowl.
Luckily, he's a backup.
Luckily.